This is At Your Service, the service management podcast from CRM Audio, with your hosts, Shawn Tabor and Yvonne Kurtev. Kingsway Soft is a leading integration solution provider, offering software solutions that make data integration affordable and painlessly easy. Thousands of enterprise clients from over 70 countries and regions rely on Kingsway Soft to integrate their data with various business systems in order to drive their business efficiency and fully leverage their information assets. Kingsway Soft is a leading provider of Microsoft Dynamics integration software, including Dynamics 365, CRM, AX, NAV, GP, SL, as well as many other applications, such as Marketo, Dropbox, QuickBooks, and Salesforce. Whether you need one solution or several, Kingsway Soft works easily within the SSIS platform to make your integration processes as quick and easy as possible. Many of their clients have seen 3 to 10 times greater data integration performance after switching to the SSIS integration platform. We thank Kingsway Soft for sponsoring this episode of At Your Service. Hello and welcome to episode 1 of At Your Service, the Dynamics 365 podcast that deals primarily with the service components of the system. We're proud to be on the CRM Audio Network, and hope you enjoy this along with the future episodes we have in store for you. My name is Shawn Tabor, and my co-host is with me, Yvonne Kurtev. Yvonne, say hey.
Hello, Shawn.
How's it going?
Oh, it's going great. I'm looking forward to recording episode 1.
Yes, indeed. And it'll be nice to get this one in the can so we can get this ball rolling. So, with the podcast, focusing on field service, customer service, and...
Field service?
I said that. I said customer service, field service?
Project service.
Yeah, that's the one. There you go.
All right.
We're leaving that in. And... yes, and we're
going to get this right.
Yes, we will. It's the first one, It's okay. So, yeah, we're going to talk about those main entities and also the things that are related to it and how they work together. And we'll, over the weeks to come, we will have guests in our little studio here. This is going to be a rarity. We're actually recording in person, whereas in the future, most of the episodes will probably be, over the interwebs.
All right. We're millennials. Doing things in person is awkward.
That's right. We're actually not looking at each other. We're kind of looking away, hoping that neither of us acknowledge the other. But, so, that being said, what are you hoping that we accomplish with the podcast?
Well, I hope, we can share our experiences with the audience on when we've implemented field service or project service or customer service. Actually, been doing customer service for a while now together. Mm-hmm. I honestly haven't touched the opportunity entity in CRM for at least 6 years, so I'm looking forward to keeping that streak going. So we'll tell you what we've done, what we've learned, what's coming up in the product. So hopefully that's a good experience for people and something useful to learn from it.
I agree. And having the focus on just this part of the system, I think will allow us to really dive a little deeper on certain topics and work with those guests that have unique experiences either with Unified Service Desk, with field service, with project service, or integrations to those modules. But today we do have a guest, Scott, and I'm going to say, I know I'm going to get it wrong, LeFante, right?
That is correct.
There you go.
Bravo.
Thank you. Scott LeFante, and you have, you work with us now, and you in your previous live, you've had a lot of experience with field service and project service.
That's correct.
So let's jump in. Project service. I have not worked a lot with project service. What would you say is the if you had to give an elevator talk to someone, they come up to you and say, "What is project service? What does it do?" What would you tell them?
Really, the quick 30-second pitch is the capability for your project managers within Dynamics 365 to estimate projects and track the actuals, do your resource planning, your cost estimate, and your invoicing all from within Dynamics 365. So taking a lot of those functionality that you had in, say, a Microsoft project, and now making it into the system where you can do your real-time reporting and metrics and tracking of the project and sharing that out real-time.
And I'm sure it has all those fun features like Gantt charts and
Yes.
Kanbans and all that good stuff.
Oh, yeah. The Gantt charts are still there. You can set up your templates ahead of time. Currency, exchange rates, and all of those fun features that were there, and then some. So it really is a nice feature. That's a nice set of functionality that's coming along.
So do you do in the implementations you've done in the past? Have you done a lot of integration like back to project where they're pushing the data out to project, or is that not once you get it into Dynamics 365, or do they move away from that?
They typically have moved away from it. The only time I've seen it shared, and the nice thing about the project services, there is a button in the menu where you can actually export that project to Microsoft Project. So if you had to share it out to a customer, for example, you can easily and quickly do that and obtain all your line items and your work breakdown structures and send that out. But so most of the time, though, however, I've seen it managed within Dynamics.
And do you typically see the project service implemented outside of a full CRM implementation, where it's a kind of a unique build, or is it something more tightly integrated with the accounts, contacts, and other sales objects?
Yeah, it is. It's tightly integrated. I'd say more on the service side. So it's very tightly knit with your unified scheduling and your resource structures. You can do your basic account, because everything typically centers around account. But we also have done some interesting things in tying it together with work orders. Okay. And having that capability to bring in some work order information into a project if you had to convert it and things of that nature.
Cool. So, I guess with a project, I always think just from a project manager perspective, and I am in no means and should never be a project manager.
I think you'd be an excellent project manager.
No, I wouldn't. The Gantt chart and that whole resource management thing, that's not my bailiwick. So, how do we go from a project? Is it going from a project task to a work order, or how are you getting to a work order, and what would be the purpose behind that?
Yeah. So, in some of the typical scenarios that I've seen in the past is, we have a project that's set up in Dynamics, and we've hit some kind of critical path. Some sort of issue that may be outside that project, but is causing that project significant pain. Maybe there's, for example, if you're working in manufacturing or supply chain, and maybe you're implementing some sort of heating and cooling system, let's just say for a large data center, and there's a component that's down that is dependent on your setup of that data center. What we've had in the past is we've created a work order. Have implemented like a button essentially on a task within the project to say, I need to create a work order based on this dependency here because it's a blocker.
Okay. So are you still dispatching a field service tech, or is it more you're using the work order as the item to complete the work?
Yeah, we're using the work order, well, actually two ways. So in the one particular case, we're using the work order to say, hey, it's not part of the project. We're still going to complete the work and not schedule it out. We're going to assign, we're on site already. So we'll just go ahead and do that since we have the skills and expertise to go ahead and do that. But we're going to bill it separately. It's not part of the project. Okay. In other scenarios, I've seen it where the work order has been created and it's gone to central dispatching to obtain the resource with the correct expertise. Maybe that it was a specialized skill set that was not there on site. So then it would go through that whole scheduling process of finding the resource and the time frame that was acceptable to the customer.
So with project service, what are some of the challenges in implementing project service in terms of not only just implementing it from an install perspective or a configuration perspective, but that change of behavior, I guess, going from where the PM may be just working in projects, syncing it to a SharePoint site, that kind of thing. How are you seeing that management of change occurring, and how successful is it?
It's definitely a paradigm shift, I would say, because there's prerequisites that have to be set up beforehand. Mm-hmm. You know, your work templates, your resources, the skills of those resources, so that when you're going to assign the work, you're selecting the right resources from a scheduling perspective. So there's a little bit more upfront work than where, if someone's that's working in Microsoft Project, you don't have to set up all of those dependencies. You can just go ahead and go about your merry ways. In some cases, some people are using Smart Sheets or even Microsoft Excel, which is even a lot more flexible. So it's really a shift in thinking of, what's the benefit? Why am I doing this within Dynamics 365 versus creating it and manage it solely in projects? And it really comes down to your reporting, your ROI on the project, what's your margin. All of that is now, as long as you set that up ahead of time, such as your cost structures and your resources and your timelines correctly, your margins and all of those calculations from a budgetary perspective are going to be on your project dashboard.
Okay.
So it takes out all that guesswork as long as you're tracking it accordingly.
Okay. And with those resources and those characteristics, so we're talking about the bookable resource.
Correct.
And which really goes across all three of the service components. Project service, like we're talking now, field service, and service.
I like it.
The standard customer service. With that shift to really get the skills and the characteristics, as you said, there's significant startup in the setup in the beginning up front. But do you find customers having more success getting their projects staffed more appropriately, or having better success in executing the projects because of that skill set based assignment?
Yeah, I would say on both cases, yes. So one, getting it appropriately staffed, specifically if customers don't have some sort of system that tracks their resources, where they are, when they're rolling off projects, and what skills that they have and their proficiency with those skills. This project service, if set up correctly with the resource skill sets, and when users or resources are rolling off of an existing project, really helps catapult you into that next level, right? So not only does it help you with the planning, but then, of course, it also says, do I have the right resources available? Do I need to go outside the organization maybe to obtain a resource for this large project? And then, of course, successfully managing that project and the resources as they go through that project. Us as consultants, we know that when we're rolling off of a project, we're looking for the next project. Well, this system allows not only the resources to see what's out there, but also resource planning, management to look at that and say, okay, Scott's rolling off this project in the next week or two or month. What do we have coming up that fits his skill set? So it helps with that planning to make sure that your resources are allocated appropriately, they're not overstaffed, and things are kind of flowing smoothly.
And do you see, given the budgetary information in the projects, have you done much integration to say 365 for operations or to for financials for that matter?
Yep, absolutely. So most of the organizations I've worked with are handling financial aspects in AX or some other ERP system. So in most cases, when we're hitting certain milestones and things like that, or invoicing frequency that we've set up within project service, we're feeding that information to an AX or some other ERP system so that they can do their billing and track their finances. Most of the time, we don't see financial resources within an organization working within CRM. They're working in AX or somewhere else. So that's where it's important to send that out. I think where it becomes important to have it in CRM is to actually see it from a project perspective, so that if I'm reporting that to management, to the customer, I can see, well, here's the burn down, here's where we are from a budgetary. We have 50% remaining with 30% of the project left to go. So we can kind of start seeing those breakdowns.
Interesting.
And Scott, how about an integration to Visual Studio Team Services to help with the execution of the project? Does that exist today?
Well, it's something that I have not had the opportunity to explore, or any projects that I've actually been on that have wanted to do that, but that would be definitely something worth exploring and seeing what would be there.
Yeah, that's something we're definitely going to look at in the future.
Yeah, no, that would be. I think we're going to start seeing that shift, especially as Visual Services, Visual Studio Team Services is kind of ramping up. Well, outside, some other customers are using other things outside of that, but it is definitely something to see, especially when you're talking about implementing and integrating, such as project tasks with, let's say, an agile methodology where you have user stories and things like that, or requirements. To link those together,
right, so
is something definitely to explore.
When you start executing the project, right, you're going to plan your team. You're going to make sure you have the people with the right skills on the team, and you're going to start executing. But once you want to track your user stories, assign tasks to them, then start creating code artifacts or other artifacts as part of the execution of the project. You want to track all that in Visual Studio Team Services, and then send updates back to project service when tasks are completed in Visual Studio Team Services. That certainly will be nice. Maybe we'll look into doing something about that.
Yeah, if it's not that'd available. Be fantastic.
And you mentioned Agile. What project methodologies does project service support?
It really supports whatever project methodology the customer is using. Right, so it supports a traditional waterfall. It supports agile or anything in between. A lot of organizations, such as Hitachi, we use hybrid.
Sure.
And they work really well, especially within the so I call it still software as a service, online, in the cloud, implementations. The hybrid agile works extremely well within a D365 implementation.
Very cool. Well, that's a lot. I haven't, to be honest, I haven't gotten to play too much with project service, and as I mentioned before, Gantt charts and Kanban or Kanban, I never know how to say that. They frighten me, quite honestly. So I just don't get involved in them. But I'm hoping that we'll get to implement that very soon in a future implementation. Now, another interesting side to the service functions within Dynamics 365 is obviously field service. And in a future episode, probably maybe the next episode, we're going to really get into the, what challenges does a field service engineer have. But maybe we need to do a road trip for that. I don't know. We'll see.
I think it would be a good fit.
We'll see. We have a very nice rental car. So, but anyways, I digress. But Ivan, with field service, what are the things within field service, the capabilities? I have gotten to play with that, so I do have experience with field service and implementation. But what are the features that you really key on and think are really beneficial for a field service implementation?
Okay, so we talked about project service, and now we're going to talk about field service. So if you don't mind, I will take a step back and talk briefly about what are the differences.
You're the co-host, my friend.
Why?
Go at it.
Let's say you're a new customer and you're trying to establish which is a better fit for your scenario. So I would say the difference field service is about delivering products and services at the customer location by typically a mobile workforce. But the difference is typically in field service you have a single technician,
right,
that travels from one customer location to another, and the typical customer engagement is fairly short. In field service you don't see multi-day work orders, if you will, right? It's typically one person that's going from place to place, and they have a truck or a vehicle that they're moving from one place to another, and they have some kind of inventory and tools that go along with it. But typically it's one person, maybe two people, and we typically have complementary roles if they are. So that's typically the makeup. And from a scheduling perspective, the capability there is to try to optimize the schedule of these technicians so that they are traveling from place to place and minimizing their travel and maximizing the time they spend on work orders. Mm-hmm. Now, with project service, on the other hand, the engagements will be typically, it's going to be a project, so it's going to be a longer engagement. Mm-hmm. It's going to take typically several days at least. Sometimes it takes several months. You're going to have a group of people that are doing the work, mm-hmm. and they will have usually fairly defined roles. So when you are scheduling them, you're looking to fill specific roles, and you care about what are the skills and certifications that resources need to have to fill that role on the project. On the field service side, you care about can this technician perform this whole job, because usually it's one person doing it. And sometimes you can get into hybrid scenarios, and you can still have a group of people doing a work order, but if you see that this is something that probably takes a long period of time and there's multiple people involved, that's probably a better candidate for project service. Also, if you need to bill the customer multiple times throughout the life cycle of the job, that again probably is going to point more to project service versus field service, where you go, you do the work, you bill the customer. In the B2C scenario, maybe you just charge them on the spot with the credit card, mm-hmm. Or just give them an invoice, while in the B2B scenario, you just invoice them, and then we frequently see integrations with ERP systems where as Scott said, where the invoicing happens, and that's common between project service and field service. So again, on the field service side, to get back to your question, the features that really help is first tracking the work, defining what are the where the work is, so that the technician can get to it with good geocoding, location-based capabilities around where a technician is throughout the day and where the job is, what tools they need to do the job, what products or parts they need to perform the specific jobs, because it's not good to send somebody to a job and then they don't have the part that they need to fix it, and they have to go back, get it from somewhere, return, mm-hmm. And then return and finish the job. That obviously is inefficient. If you know that somebody is maybe a little farther but has the right part, that certainly is going to help in that scenario. So that those types of capabilities are important. Then it's important to have the scheduling and dispatch capabilities, so that you are looking at all of your technicians and you're optimizing their schedule and you're adjusting it also in real time. If you see that somebody maybe is taking a little longer on a job versus and then maybe switching their schedule or calling the customers, giving them a courtesy call and letting them know that the technician may be late. There's very good integration to where you can send a text message to the customer and let them know where somebody's arriving, where they are, and so that they can plan their time accordingly, as opposed to the episode from my favorite show, Seinfeld, where Kramer was waiting all day and in the end started hiding from the cable guy because he was frustrated because they weren't showing up.
Okay, so Avant, if I'm not mistaken, there's two field service apps right now, and we are still dependent on Resco, correct?
Correct, yes. So the Field One Sky mobile app was based on the Resco client, and after Field One was acquired by Microsoft, they inherited that capability. So currently, even if you're using Dynamics 365, the primary app that a field service agent would use would be a mobile app based on the Resco platform that has a few extensions on top of it that specifically apply to the field service scenario. There's also a lightweight mobile app mobile app capabilities that are built into the original or out-of-the-box Dynamics CRM/365 app, and in some scenarios that may be sufficient, but if you're looking for a rich, full-blown field service mobile app, you would still use the Resco app. The app is available in the Windows Store or the different app stores, depending on the mobile platform that you're using.
Right. It'll be interesting to see how long that dependency holds. The Woodford solution and the RESCO client has a lot of history for the field service app and a lot of functionality, honestly. And the RESCO mobile does a lot of things that the standard Dynamics 365 app doesn't do as well. So I can understand to a certain degree why there's still a dependency, but hopefully those differences will start to change.
Again, only time can tell. The RESCO app is certainly very interesting. The field service mobile is very interesting. Prior to getting into field service, I had not worked with the RESCO mobile platform, and there's certainly some very good, very interesting capabilities there. The form rules configuration capabilities for the app are very powerful. In a number of areas, they compare very favorably even to the workflow engine in Dynamics CRM. Especially what I like is the ability to query the system for records and retrieve one or more records and apply logic based on the data returned, which unfortunately we still can't do with the workflow engine. So we cannot apply build workflows that apply on the many side of a one-to-many relationship, and that's still a limitation we deal with, and we have to write plugins for with the workflow engine. So those configuration capabilities are certainly very interesting. But on the other side, you have the one of the nice thing about the out-of-the-box CRM app is that you have the main premise of configuring once and deploying it anywhere, your platform anywhere.
Right.
Now, when you start working with the RESCO app, you have to configure again for your mobile workforce. And maybe your mobile workforce has special needs and scenarios, so configuring again for them is going to be a need. But again, any business rule that you need to implement, if you want to implement it once in CRM or Dynamics 365 for field service, you'd implement it there. Then you'd have to go and implement it again in the mobile app through the whatever configuration tool. So that certainly increases the initial investment to configure the application. But again, you can deliver more targeted capabilities that way. There's certainly, as with everything else, there's pros and cons.
Sure. And one of the really cool things that both project and field service has done for Dynamics 365 is really, in my opinion, extended the standard customer service capabilities. It's really given it a lot more, I want to say presence. Historically, you're really dealing with just case management, call centers, that kind of thing. But now, you not only have that call center and case management capabilities, but you can spawn work orders off of those cases. You can, from a sales organization, if I wanted to convert an opportunity into a work order, I can do that. So there's more dimension to the customer service capabilities. You're really able to do more with that customer service capability than you could in the past. The product catalog, for example, is not just a sales item anymore, right? You can really leverage that to a serious degree within field service with your customer assets and inventory.
To define the products and services that you're using when you're delivering work orders, for example.
Instead, it's not just, I jokingly I say, product catalog is not just for widgets anymore. So you really can leverage that successfully in a field service implementation. I don't know if you would be able to extend that to project service. I've never tried it. I don't know if there would be a need for it. I could see in a manufacturing scenario where that project is based on the construction of a new product, where that might tie into it. But again, have never seen it.
I'm sorry, field service. Dynamics 365 hasn't set that up with me yet.
So what you just heard is I said the right words, and Siri picked up and thought I wanted to open field service for Dynamics 365, and I haven't configured Siri to do that, so it wouldn't let me do it. But that's another cool feature, though. Thank you, Siri. With Cortana intelligence, you can now launch these apps and go into a contextual experience within the app. You can have deeper integration with the Office 365 apps and all the like. So there's a lot of powerful functionality and capability within the service components, hence why we're having this podcast.
Right, and if you think about it, obviously, field service is another touch point with the customer.
Right.
And it is one of the situations where we actually have direct face-to-face contact with the customer, and the impression that we make as an organization to the customer in those scenarios is very important as to how customers will view our organization.
Oh, for sure.
So having a good system to support those processes is very important. From another perspective, if you look at the numbers, there's actually in the United States a lot more people employed in field service than in customer service and sales. I think the numbers, if you take customer service and sales combined, are still lower than field service, and project service also is way up there. So there's a lot of people who are working in these functions, and now we have system to support them.
Sure. Yeah, field service definitely is becoming the face of your organization, not only from a sales perspective, but from a marketing perspective as well. You have a bad experience, let's say getting your AC fixed when someone comes out to the house. That is a lot stronger because they're in person, right? It's a much more resident experience than having a bad experience on the phone, right?
Absolutely, and again, having those people trained, it's important to consider not only the technology that we are implementing, but also the training and just having good processes overall in the organization to enable field service. Now, what's really changed, and the game changer for me, is one, the proliferation of mobile devices, and two, the ubiquitous internet connectivity. And now organizations have a much better sense where their technicians are, and then or what they need, so they can react to that in real time.
Sure.
And help them so that they can again be more efficient or serve customers better with information contextual to the interaction with the next customer that they're going to see.
Absolutely. So, you can just easily see the depth and breadth of the service capabilities of Dynamics 365, and it gives you a peek into what we'll be, uncovering in the future episodes. There's so much to talk about, from omni-channel interaction to unified service desk to extensions for field service, project service, integration capabilities. And the like. So, hopefully, there's this podcast is going to be of great value to a lot of folks out there. And like I said before, we're really happy to be part of the Serum Audio Network, and can't wait to get more episodes and more information out to you guys. Do you guys want to? Are you guys like on social media? Do you want to tell people?
What is social media?
There you go. Good man. Well, apparently not.
Hence the reason why service is so important these days, because social media is there. So if you have a bad experience,
right, you're going to tell everybody.
You're going to tell everybody, and they're going to know.
Well, and that's another thing. It's integrating to social engagement. That's another topic that we're gonna go into. Unified scheduling. We could go on and on and on, which, again, why we're having the podcast. So I think that gives a good start to episode 1. I think that kind of gives a capsule of all the service capabilities of Dynamics 365 and is a nice little launching point. Any closing comments from you guys on the 3 components?
I think I'm very excited about this podcast and the opportunity to talk about field service and project service and customer service. So we're going to dive deeper in future episodes in specific features, and I look forward to it.
I think for me, it's, there has been this shift. For years it was, how can we better enable our sales force, opportunity, lead management, campaign management with marketing. Right. Now you're seeing this shift to how do we retain our customers? How do we service them better so that, from an existing customer base, how do we differentiate ourselves from our competitors and keep them with excellent service? So we're seeing this big shift now, more service-based. So this is where I see all these service functionalities within Dynamics becoming super critical to every organization out there.
Right, because it's right. The cliche is a lot easier, and it's also a fact that it's a lot easier to sell to existing customers as long as they're happy customers.
Exactly. Well, I think on that, we'll wrap episode 1 of At Your Service. Thank you to Scott LeFante. I'm sure you'll be back in future episodes when we need your sage knowledge. Sounds good. On behalf of Ivan Kurtev, I am Shawn Tabor, and as always, we're at your service. At Your Service is a production of Dynamic Podcasts LLC. Follow Shawn on Twitter at CRM Hobbit. Subscribe to the CRM Audio network of podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, or any place else that fine podcasts are available. You can email us at voice@crm.audio. Thanks again to our sponsors, Kingsway Soft and Alexa CRM.